Do you remember Douglas Wilson, the Christian pastor? If you're like me, that name rings a bell, but it's not a name that you've really thought about very much, at least not recently. And in my case, that's because Douglas Wilson used to be a figure kind of on the periphery of the atheist movement. And that's because he was one of Christopher Hitchens' favorite debate partners. In fact, once upon a time, Hitchens and Douglas Wilson actually were in a documentary called Collision. It's kind of an overwrought title given the subject matter, but it's about their series of debates on atheism and Christianity and whether or not Christianity is a good thing for the world or a negative force for the world. And it is a charming relic of a brief window in time when enough people gave enough of a shit about atheists arguing with Christians that somebody was actually able to get financing to make a documentary about it. But I wonder what Douglas Wilson is up to lately.
H-1B visas are for highly skilled workers who come to the U.S. legally. The number set by Congress for such visas annually is 65,000, with room for 20,000 more if they have graduate degrees from U.S. colleges. But nevertheless, that's a lot of Hindus. Remember that these are skilled and ambitious people likely to rise to positions of influence and control. That means that when it comes to America retaining its distinct identity as a nation, they clearly represent a diluting agent.
All right, then. You know, I can't really say I'm surprised, because even back in the day when I knew of him through his interactions with Hitchens, which were really the only exposure to him that I ever got, there was he had kind of a vibe of, there's another shoe that's going to have to drop with this guy. You know what I mean? Like there was something about, even though he seems very affable and he's obviously very intelligent and very well read, and he was a really good debate partner for Hitchens, and even though they were on opposite sides, they seemed to get along with each other and have a mutual respect for each other. And even with all of that, there was something about him that just seemed a little weird, a little more fundamentalist than he was letting on, a little less open-minded and tolerant and ecumenical than he was presenting himself as. And through clips like that, now we know the dude's a white nationalist. Now, he would never say that about himself, I'm quite sure. I don't think he would ever describe himself as a white nationalist, although he has come very, very close to doing so in some other interviews of him that I've seen over the past couple of years, where he said, well, if you're going to break down my beliefs, blah, 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 then I guess you could call me a white nationalist, or you could call me a Christian nationalist, but he has never actually come out and said, hey, that's me, I'm a Christian nationalist. Hey, that's me, I'm a white nationalist. But like, what else do you call that? When he says about the H-1B visa program letting in potentially 60-some thousand highly skilled Hindus to the United States, oh, that's a lot of Hindus. That could potentially change the national character of the United States. What else do you call that? But white nationalism, or Christian nationalism, or both, because they are very much together. Like, what else is that? What's the legitimate version of that? Like, what is the legitimate explanation for Douglas Wilson or anybody else having that objection to bringing in legal immigrants who are desired for the workforce? Like, these aren't people, this isn't like the typical Trump, Republican talking point of, oh, they're sneaking into the country, they're illegal, they don't belong here, they're criminals. This is people who enter through a government visa program, who have been approved for entry, who are coming here because there is a place for them in the economy. Like, their presence in the country is desired by someone, right? They're supposed to be here. Everything that they're doing, it's all above board. It's all the kinds of stuff that Republicans claim they shouldn't really have a problem with, right? Because it's not about racism. No, it's not. They're not white nationalists. They don't care about that. It's just, we want to be able to control the border. Well, they're coming through in a controlled way, through an approved process, fully above board, completely monitored, everything. They're signing the book on the way in. So what's the problem? It's a lot of Hindus. It's going to change the national character. What parts of the national character is it going to change, I wonder? What parts of the national character are going to change that concern Christian pastor Douglas Wilson? Is there some reason why he doesn't want there to be more Hindus in the country? Is there some reason why he doesn't want there to be more people from countries where Hindus typically live in large numbers? Is there some reason why he doesn't want there to be more people from the country of India, let's say, coming here? Like, what is that objection? What is that objection that isn't racist, that isn't nationalist, that isn't bigoted, that isn't an example of either racial bigotry or religious bigotry, that is a legitimate objection to this? Because I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of what that might be. I can't think of a single legitimate, non-bigoted reason why someone like Douglas Wilson would have a concern about Hindus entering the country legally through an H-1B visa. What's the legitimate reason for that objection? I don't think there is one. I think it's Christian nationalism. I think it's white nationalism. That's what I think. By the way, thanks to Right Wing Watch for that clip that I showed you. And you know you have fucked up when you find yourself on Right Wing Watch. And actually, Douglas Wilson has popped up on Right Wing Watch quite a bit over the past year or so, at least that I've noticed, maybe even for longer than that, and I just wasn't paying attention. But it's the first time that I've really seen him since the days of debating Christopher Hitchens. In fact, I think the last time before I started seeing him pop up as a Christian nationalist on Right Wing Watch, the last thing of his that I saw was an interview he gave and a piece he wrote following the death of Christopher Hitchens, because he and Hitchens were associated. Of course, people wanted to know, like, what did he think? What did he have to say in the wake of the death of his friend and debating partner, Christopher Hitchens? And that was the last thing. And I mean, he basically said the same thing that any Christian of his type. I don't want to paint all Christians with a broad brush, because lots of Christians are perfectly wonderful, lovely people who aren't fucking white nationalists or Christian nationalists or any kind of bigot. But he said something about Hitchens, like, well, I hope that he was saved, before he died. I hope that he's not burning in hell right now. Like, that's his version of empathy and egalitarian brotherhood. Well, my friend Christopher Hitchens, of course, he was an atheist. Hopefully he had a last-second deathbed conversion and he accepted Christ, because otherwise he's burning in hell. I mean, he didn't put it quite that way, but that's what he was saying. So that's the last time I heard of him, and that was, 10 years ago, however long it was that Hitchens died. It was a long time ago. And now here he is, popping up on the radar of a website that is dedicated to chronicling and exposing the words and deeds of radical right-wing people, including Christian nationalists, like, apparently, although he would never say this himself, Douglas Wilson. I mean, who would have thought that this ridiculous thing would wind up being the high point of his his time in the media spotlight? No, he's making a comeback. He got a taste of it with the Hitchens documentary, and now he's coming back. He said, no, I want that. I want some more of that. I want some more attention. And I'm going to get it by preaching not just Christianity to the people in my church, but Christian nationalism, and coming out and saying they're letting too many Hindus in. Although, again, he doesn't even say that. I would actually maybe respect him a little more if he just came out and said, they're letting in too many Hindus. It's fucked up. No, he doesn't even say that. He says, boy, he does the disingenuous, just asking questions thing. Boy, that sure is a lot of Hindus, isn't it? That's going to change. That if we let that many Hindus in on a regular basis, I mean, eventually that's going to change the character of the United States. You know who I bet also had an objection to immigrants changing the character of this country? The people who were here before our ancestors. I bet the indigenous population of North America, when all these Europeans started showing up, I bet maybe they had the thought of, this is really going to change the character of the population here, this might not be such a good thing. And I mean, we didn't listen to them, did we? We didn't take their concerns seriously. So, I mean, why should we expect anybody to take the concerns of a fucking racist like Douglas Wilson seriously?